All right. Well, thanks for meeting with me, Axel.
Yeah, glad to. Thank you for coming by.
Yeah. So I just wanted to go over. I brought an agenda to today, so you know what to expect from our time together. So I want to go over that real quick with you. First thing is an overview about the company Mutual of Omaha. I know we just talked about Wild Kingdom. You said you heard of us.
Oh yeah, sure. So, when I was a kid, yeah.
So obviously you know the name. What I'd like to show you is a little bit more about our financial strength, some things that might be pertinent to you looking at doing business with us.
Okay.
Okay. Also the process I use, which you'll probably find different than other folks you may have sat down with in the past, and I'll kind of cover that right now. Today we're going to cover some common concerns and suitability regarding Medicare and everything to do with folks in your age bracket. We find there's four main areas that folks in your age are kind of concerned about, so I just want to go over those, make sure we're doing our due diligence. From there, we're going to do what we call a fact finder. I'm going to ask you some background questions for suitability to make sure that any Medicare supplement or anything else that we would recommend is suitable for your situation. Okay, that's something we have to do. If any other interests or concerns arise during my presentation, we'll prioritize those and just kind of make sure we're going in the order that you want to go to handle those things. And then we'd meet again another time. If there's further discussion to be had, we'll take the next step at that time, which usually involves taking applications, getting into underwriting, things of that nature. But today's meeting is just to be informative, let you know what I do, how I do business, how I can help you, and I want to learn about your needs and what they are.
Okay.
Okay. Expectations, real simple. There's two of them. Number one, I want to keep you current on what's going on. Meet with my clients at least annually. Things are going to change in your life. Things are definitely going to change in our industry. I want to make sure we're still doing right by you, keeping you informed, and make sure you got the best thing for you.
Well, that's great. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, not a problem. Second thing is I do build my business entirely on referrals. So I would humbly ask that if we're able to do business together and you like the way that I treat you, you'd be willing to refer me to folks like yourself who I could also help out.
Okay, yeah, I can think about that, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Questions on what we're going to cover today?
No, that makes a lot of sense.
Okay, I'll get right down to it. So, Mutual of Omaha, obviously you heard of us. We just celebrated our 102nd birthday.
Me too.
Oh, did you? All right, excellent. You look great for 102.
Yeah, I'm just kidding, I'm 65.
Oh, okay. So obviously established company, been around a long time. Benefits that we paid out in 2008 were just over $2.8 billion. So that means we're scratching checks at the home office for over $7 million each day to pay out folks like yourself.
I'll take one.
Sure, yeah. We'll see if we can do that for you. Can I make a note of that? Show you some big numbers here. Assets we currently have under management, $21.2 billion. You can see our reserves, surplus reserves, all these big numbers here. So we're a large company. We're stable. Familiar with any of these companies down here?
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, I've seen a lot of them in the news recently. Some good, some bad, some ugly.
Sure.
Yeah, so know quite a bit about them.
Great.
Yeah.
So you know that they're third-party organizations. They rate insurance companies, among other things. And
well, the best thing we got to do it. That's these guys. So yeah, looks like you guys are pretty solvent, strong company there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
So, good. This is our home office, Omaha, Nebraska. I don't know if you ever had the pleasure.
No, I was thinking about vacationing there this year.
Yeah, I bet you were. Everyone does. I go back a few times a year, but just show you this is our home office here. It's the tallest building in Omaha, and that's another office down there. But we do have brick and mortar. We're a real company.
Arguably the tallest building in the entire state, right?
Yeah. Other than some really high cornfields, but yeah.
Yeah, well, they get big.
This is a self-portrait I wanted to show you. No, but this just talks about sponsorship and how we try to get involved. You had mentioned you grew up watching the Wild Kingdom show at your grandmother's house.
Oh, yeah.
So,
God bless her.
Yeah, obviously we get that a lot. And, they did actually re-release the show. It's on Animal Planet in its same old time slot. It's Sunday evening. Obviously no Marlon Perkins now. It's just narrated, but so we still got that going. We're the official corporate sponsor for the USA Swimming Team.
Awesome. Cool.
Okay, so enough of that. I talked about some concerns in areas of suitability that I wanted to cover with you. These are four different areas right here that I'll cover briefly. First one is the cost of health care. I find this concerns people in your age bracket. Obviously, that's why we're talking today.
Yeah, that's why I called, yeah.
Medicare supplement, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Great. So we're gonna cover that in great detail. Something else we found is the devastating cost of chronic care. So that's a little different than just regular health care, and we'll get into that. Running out of money while you're still living. I'm sure you've never worried about that, right?
Yeah.
And then final expenses and estate preservation, what's going to happen once we're gone. So I'll cover each of these briefly, and definitely feel free to stop me, ask questions as I go through.
Okay.
So first and foremost, the cost of health care. Great thing now that you're turning 65, Axel, is that you're going to really have better health care for less than you were paying to your employer from what we talked over the phone. So, so that's a good thing. But you do have a couple options, and I don't know how much research you've done, but have you heard about the differences between a Medicare supplement and a Medicare Advantage plan?
I know a little bit about the difference between the two. Not enough to, certainly not what you know.
Okay, great. Well, hopefully I can bridge the gap there and give you some more info. And it really comes down to which one's right for you.
Okay.
It's all about being appropriate. There's no one size fits all. So I'll kind of talk about these. Important factors to consider. This is the number one right here, this bullet point, is your annual out-of-pocket costs. A lot of people think about premiums. I kind of ask the question, if I can give you a policy that covered nothing and cost nothing, would you feel very secure and want that? Have all your needs taken care of? No. So it's not all about premium. It's about what am I spending per year for my health costs. That has to do with premium, co-pays, drug costs, co-insurance, anything that's out of pocket.
Okay, deductibles, all that.
Right,
okay.
all combined together. So that's what we try to look at. The other thing is networks, disenrolling from the Medicare system, and open enrollment. So very simple graph here. We find that a lot of folks, when they hit 65, are often living on a fixed income. I don't know if it's true of your situation, but Social Security, maybe a pension, maybe not, some retirement income. So we're just going to use this line with the circles here as Social Security income of $1,200 a month.
Okay.
And if that's your only income, and that's fixed, right, you probably want fixed medical expenses, I would assume.
I would certainly like that. Yeah, it gives me room to buy groceries at least.
Right, yeah. It's predictable. You can plan for that. You can't plan for unpredictable. So this triangle line is a Medicare supplement policy. With a Plan F, as I'm going to show you, all you do is you pay your premiums, and you're not going to have any other out-of-pocket medical costs.
Okay.
So I can calculate this is my premium, multiply that by 12, that's my out-of-pocket medical cost for the year.
That's awesome.
Pretty easy. This square line will represent an Advantage plan. Advantage plans are a lot more like traditional health insurance we've had kind of throughout our working life. HMO, PPO type plans. So you pay a premium, but there's also an annual deductible you have to satisfy. Every time you go to the doc, there's a copay, $20, $30. The specialist, there's a referral fee. There's a co-insurance even once you meet your deductible. Is this sounding familiar?
Yeah.
There's a maximum out of pocket. They say, well, once you hit $5,000, you stop paying. Then they'll pick up everything. So that can make things a little unpredictable. If you see here, your premiums are often fairly low, and if you're not going to the doctor, that's fine. But when you actually go, and you're probably going to go sometime in the next 30 years of your life, I'd assume.
Certainly.
That's going to jump up. So you're going to have co-insurance, copay, and then God forbid something serious happens, surgery, something like that, you're going to have a really big bill. And then maybe it goes back down, you don't go, and then maybe you have some other issue happen. So kind of looks like the stock market, right?
Yeah, right.
We find most seniors want predictability in their medical expenses, so we think a Medicare supplement achieves that a lot more effectively than an Advantage plan.
Okay. Oh, yeah, I can see why. Yeah, that would ruin your cash flow for the rest of the year if you had that one bump in the road.
Mm-hmm. The other thing is Advantage plans have networks of doctors you have to go to, which I'm sure you've experienced in your health insurance career.
Yeah, definitely.
With a Medicare supplement, there's absolutely no networks. Any doctor who accepts Medicare will accept your supplement.
Wow. Okay.
So that's good, and especially if you live in a if you live in a rural area or travel to rural areas, that if they accept Medicare, you can go there. Whereas if you have, Kaiser plan or something, and there's no Kaiser in that rural area, you'd be paying through the nose for out-of-network care.
So if I'm just visiting family members in Louisiana, I need to go to the doctor, I can just pick a doctor, any doctor.
That accepts Medicare, yep.
Wow. That's fantastic. I know in HMO you can't really just go willy-nilly and do that. That's awesome. Okay.
Right. So I'd like to break it down a little more, and we'll kind of ignore this middle column that says Plan N, but let's talk about the Plan F and the typical Advantage plan. And do a cost comparison, and hopefully this will make sense to you. Let's assume you went to see a doctor 6 times a year on a regular basis, and during that year you had an accident where you were in need of surgery, and you encountered the following expenses. Okay, so you went to the doc 6 times a year, had an accident, needed the surgery. Here's what you're going to pay in your Plan F. For your regular office visits, you're going to pay $0. Your ambulance ride for that accident, $0. Your emergency room visit, $0. Your hospital stay, 0. Your physical therapy to get better was 0. Crutches were 0, so you have a total of 0. The total of a premiums, and this is just a random figure, so we don't know exactly what yours is yet. We'll have to look it up. But let's say you paid $990 per year for this policy in premiums. You had no Part B deductible, no co-pays, none of this stuff. You're paying $990 a year for your health coverage.
Okay.
Same thing in an Advantage plan. Your regular office visits, you're going to have a copay. Generally anywhere from $20 to $30. So we take that, times that by 6 office visits, and we're looking at anywhere from $90 to $180 for copays just for visits. Your ambulance ride for that accident is going to cost you generally about $150. Emergency room visit, $50 there. Hospital, you have a co-insurance first 5 days till you meet your deductible, $875 to $1375. Physical therapy, you're going to pay anywhere from $360 to $480 for that. Crutches, $20 for that. So your total is anywhere from $1,500 to over $2,200 just for these little copays and nickel and dime stuff.
That's crazy.
We're going to add to that your Part B deductible, which is actually $162 now, and all these copays that we talked about up here, plus you have your premium too. I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong column. Right here. So these are your premiums, and they vary greatly in Advantage plans. That's why I say the premium could be as low as $468 a month here, which is obviously a lot lower than here, and there's actually some that are even more with all your copays. So we're looking at a cost of anywhere from $2,000 to $3,500 per year versus $990 over here.
Okay.
Questions on that?
What's this plan in? It says new next to it. Is that something you guys offer, or?
Yeah, not anymore actually. That was a different kind of plan for folks that had some health challenges and couldn't get on an F or an Advantage plan. But it really doesn't apply anymore because, anymore. It doesn't apply to you because you're in what we call open enrollment, guaranteed issue period.
Okay.
You can get on any plan you want right now, and we cannot look at your previous medical history as an underwriting tool to decline you. We have to accept you as is right now.
Oh, okay.
So,
all right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Then forget that.
A couple other things. Why Mutual of Omaha, other than having a really good-looking agent, is low to no out-of-pocket costs, as I showed you. You have the choice of going to those providers. Coverage goes with you, not only within the United States, like you talked about Louisiana. You also have international coverage up to $50,000 with a supplement, whereas an Advantage plan you do not. We've personally been in the Medicare supplement market since the beginning, 1966, when this first came out. We're one of the only original carriers still in the business
Wow,
doing
okay.
Medicare supplement. So we know it better than anybody. We currently insure over 800,000 people for Medicare supplement. We pay over $2.5 million a day just to Medicare supplement claims only.
It's a big chunk.
Yeah, so that $7 million I showed you on the first page,
Yeah.
2.5 just a Medicare supplement.
Wow.
Okay.
Okay.
But there is some things Medicare does not cover that I'd like to address with you. You ever heard of long-term care?
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely have.
Medicare does not cover long-term care or what we call chronic care. What Medicare will do is they'll cover 100 days in a skilled nursing facility. What that is anywhere where there's a facility where there's trained nurses on staff to care for people. But you have to be hospitalized 3 days prior to going to that facility, and it must be recuperative in nature, meaning you're going to get better. I need a hip replacement, right? I went to the hospital, so if I satisfied my 3 days in the hospital, then I went to the skilled nursing facility after I got my hip replacement to kind of get better, and I needed care for that. That'd be recuperative, and they would cover 100 days. Things that you're not going to get better from: dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, lupus, things that are debilitating diseases that there is no cures for, and there's a lot of them out there. Medicare is not going to cover that because they're not recuperative, and they're going to last a heck of a lot more than 100 days.
Sure.
And Medicare does also not cover anything in the home. It's only in a skilled facility. So this is a big thing, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit. I don't know. Have you ever known anyone that's needed any kind of care, either in the home or in a facility?
Yeah, my mother. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what kind of impact did that have on her and the family?
Well, and, financially, negatively. So, it's definitely something I'm interested in, especially if you're expected to get better before they pay anything. I mean, long-term care, you typically don't get better in most instances. So.
Right. Okay. Good. just some costs here. Oregon, Washington area. Nursing homes, about $68,000 a year. Assisted living facility, about $35,000 a year. And home health care, $41,000 a year. Seeing more and more people that want to stay home as long as possible. That's the most comfortable for everyone, to have someone come in their home. And that's kind of the progression. So most people would start out at home, then go to assisted living where you can still do some things on your own, and then ultimately if you had to go to a nursing home where you needed a very high level of care around the clock. That's kind of the progression. But none of them are cheap. These are people's annual salaries we're talking about just for care.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's for people who can't earn income.
Average stay in a nursing home's 2.5 years, but once again, that's the progression once you've gotten there. You've probably had years of care at home and in assisted living before you even made it to your 2.5 years at 70 grand a pop. Okay. Average lifespan of someone with Alzheimer's is 10 years. A lot of these people can be physically very healthy, but mentally they're not, and they need this care. So that's obviously very costly. Odds of needing long-term care services are 1 in 2. So what I always recommend, Axel, is if it's going to be you or your wife, we'll just insure that person. No, I'm just kidding. Couples age 65 have a 75% chance that one of you will need care. So, I mean, it's pretty much going to happen. What is your plan? There's basically 3 ways to tackle this. Number 1, you could self-insure. You can use your savings retirement dollars that you've accumulated throughout your whole life, and you can spend them down dollar for dollar for this kind of care. And as you can see with these figures, they can be exasperated pretty quickly.
You'll be on Medicaid before too long.
Thank you for taking me to my next step, and that is spend down for Medicaid.
Okay.
It sounds like you're familiar with Medicaid.
Yeah.
It's government welfare. You have to spend down until you have $2,000 to your name, and then you'll go on welfare, and you'll go in a facility that they tell you to go, where, when, how. The government's now taking care of you.
I'm sure they're pretty snazzy facilities too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Only the finest for people on welfare. Third option would be, for pennies on the dollar, you could transfer that risk to an insurance company and purchase an individual long-term care policy, such as ones that we offer.
Okay.
I'm not going to tell you what that looks like, but right here, this is currently how people pay financing for long-term care. About 20% of claims are paid by Medicare because they follow these guidelines I talked about here.
Okay.
48% of claims right now are paid by Medicaid, so those are people on welfare. 18% of people are paying out of pocket. 7.2% have private insurance like we offer, and then 5.3% is other, maybe a church or something's paying for them. But if you take out of pocket and Medicaid, between the two of those, that's about 70%. So 70% of people that are paying for long-term care are either on Medicaid or they're blowing through their out-of-pocket money and they're on their way to Medicaid.
Okay.
Not a good place to be.
No.
The government has realized this is a real problem, that Medicaid is getting hit really hard with all the baby boomers turning 65. They know they're not going to be able to support all that.
Okay.
And obviously you don't want to get there in the first place, but even to have your fallback plan possibly not be there in the future is a pretty scary thing. So I'll kind of show you what we do and what the government's doing to incent people to be responsible and take care of this themselves. The first thing is called long-term care partnership law. What this does in the state of Oregon is allows you to protect your assets from a Medicaid spend down. Give me an example. When you purchase a policy, you have a pool of dollars for your care. We'll use $300,000 as an example. If you blew through that whole $300,000 and you still needed care, you'd now be going into your own resources, right?
Okay.
After your policy was all used up. What the government will now allow you to do for being responsible and taking care of yourself and buying that $300,000 policy is they will not look at the equivalent $300,000 of your assets and still let you go on Medicaid. So instead of having to spend down to $2,000, you can spend down to $302,000 and go on Medicaid.
Okay.
And that's a much better thing because you'll be able to keep your money for your freedom to be able to choose where you go and all that and have money for yourself.
Okay.
The other thing that they do is it has a couple tax laws they pass. Number 1, there's a tax credit, $500. And if you know anything about taxes, a credit's much better than a deduction.
Yeah.
That's basically giving you $500 to your rebate,
Okay.
a tax credit. And there's also a deduction from your premiums.
Okay.
So they got the partnership law, tax credit, and tax deduction. They're really incenting people that, hey, we need to take care of this because Medicaid's not going to survive. Questions on that?
So, when this says pennies for the pennies on the dollar, are we talking about the what dollars are we talking about? Are we talking about the the nursing home dollars, or what are we talking about?
Right, because if I go to a nursing home and I'm paying the $68,000 a year, I'm paying that dollar for dollar out of my bank account. If I have an insurance policy that's paying that, I'm paying pennies on the dollar, because I may pay them $100 a month for a policy, and they're going to pay thousands of dollars to the month, a month to the facility.
Okay, that's pretty interesting. All right,
So just leveraging.
Yeah, I think I got this.
Okay.
That makes a lot of sense. It's actually it's pretty crazy, the partnership law.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I've never even heard of that.
Yeah, a lot of people haven't, and it's in what you see when the government does something that drastic, it's letting them know you need to help yourself. I mean, we're going to make it attractive for you to help yourself.
Okay. Gosh, yeah.
So what's the purpose? We call this the ABCs of long-term care. Protect your personal assets you've worked hard for. Not be a burden to your children or whomever would have to take care of you or quit their job to do so. And have the choice of where you receive care and how you receive care.
Okay.
Something else we do help with, I'll run through real quick, is investments. I'm a licensed registered representative with Mutual of Omaha. Always specialize in investments. So what I find when I sit down with folks is a lot of times their risk tolerance is not in line with their actual portfolio. We've kind of been told one thing as we're growing up, and then we get to 65, and our portfolio still looks like that of a 25-year-old.
Okay.
Maybe that's not very congruent with our current risk tolerance and needs at this point in our life.
Sure.
So what do we do? We do a free review and asset allocation analysis. We don't charge for that. We just want to ensure your investments are in line with your risk tolerance. Most of them are not. Give you a real quick example. People say, hey, buy and hold. It's all going to rebound and come back. That's great when you're 25, 30, 35 years old and you're still putting money in, and when the market goes down, you're buying stuff on sale.
Sure, yeah.
Now, a lot of folks when they're 65, I'm not contributing anymore. When it goes down, I'm not buying new shares on sale. And this is very simple, but bear with me because most people don't realize this. Average annual return fallacy. Let's say in year one you had a 50% loss, kind of like 2008, right?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. So you have $100, just to make the numbers easy. You lost half of it, now you got $50.
Mm-hmm.
Well, year two it rebounds, just like it did in 2009, right?
Sure, yeah.
Oh, great, now it goes up 50%. Oh, well, that's perfect. I'm right back where I was. No, you're not.
No, you only went up 50%.
Now you got $75.
Yeah, okay.
Right, and obviously if we're talking about hundreds of thousands instead of $100, that's a big difference. And people don't realize that. So when you're not adding to this and you can't afford those losses because you're going to live off this money, you really can't be that aggressive. So a couple things talked about here is just over 9% of your portfolio's performance is based on asset allocation, or how you're spread out over the market. 8.5% on when you get in the market, so timing. Excuse me, that's 91.5%. I apologize. So 90% of your performance just has to do with being in line with your goals and risk tolerance. Only 8% is the actual timing of jumping in and out of funds and things like that.
Okay.
So it's not about timing the market. It's about being in investments that are appropriate for you. That's something we help with. Another thing is understanding the cost of settling an estate. Unfortunately, it's not free to die in this country.
It's not free to do anything.
It's really not. But this talks about some things that, who's going to want their check? The funeral home, medical expenses, long-term care, advisors like attorneys, accountants, appraisers, executors, and trustees, taxes on property, income, estate, debts, any credit cards, loans, mortgages, probate costs, lots of different things are going to happen. And lastly here, I'll just talk about some funding strategies. Life insurance can be a powerful tool for estate planning if it's needed. Obviously, it has to be somewhat sizable estate for it to be needed, but it does provide tax-free dollars that bypass probate. And some things we've ran across before, just to give you an example, estate equalization. How do you distribute an illiquid estate? So if maybe there's two children and most of the money of the estate is tied up in a property or a business. One person wants that property or business, the other sibling does not. Well, if we just give that to the one who wants it and nothing to the other one, that's not going to be so good. So we can put a policy on someone for, let's say, the value of the home or the business, so that way when that person passes, the child who wants the business or home gets that, the other person just gets the cash equivalent of that.
Okay.
It's and then makes it fair.
That's pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm. Some other things like permission slips, and we use that, what we call pension maximization. Another thing would be maximizing the estate, but I'm not going to get into all that right now because I don't know if they apply to you. But some of the pitfalls we see of life insurance planning with seniors, a lot of them have what's called term insurance. You familiar with that?
Yeah, very, very familiar with term insurance.
Less than 2% of term insurance ends up paying out at the end, and that's because people outlive it. It's only for a specific period of time. And if you made it this far, you probably outlived your term, so or you're going to soon. Another one's just something called accidental policies out there you get for free at your bank, things like that. They're not really worth the paper they're printed on. So those are things we can talk about too, but that's really all I wanted to cover. So what I wanted to do now is just jump into this fact finder and just get some basic suitability information for you, so any recommendations we make we know would be in line with what you need.
Okay. It's fantastic.
Great.